again.
So another method that I use on yellow jackets when I can is something that you can do without chemicals, which depending on where you're at, if you're near your beehives, maybe you don't want to be using poison that these yellow jackets might be tracking back and forth while they visit your hives, or even the poison-free methods. There's some sprays with mint oil and things like that that are more poison-free that can be used, and maybe you don't want to use those either. So the glass bowl method can be done with or without dry ice. Today we're also going to try some dry ice, but the basic concept is find a nice big glass bowl. This one's just for an example, but I would say something 8-inch diameter or bigger if you can. Check out Goodwill, look for some old glass bowls. You can use a smooth-edged or a little bit of scalloped, probably wouldn't hurt, because one of the things I like to do is weight and seal the edges a little bit, so a little bit of scalloped edges wouldn't be a big deal. So similar to the metal screen method, we're trapping them in and letting them starve to death. So say this is our big bowl, and we had our yellow jacket nest here. You want to be suited up, especially if you're going to do this in the daytime, because it'll take a few minutes to set this up, and while you're doing that, there's going to be the foragers that are coming back that want to get into the nest, and they likely want to sting you with you there standing over the top. So make sure you're suited up well. We can talk more about that later. But let's say this is our nest. Put our glass bowl on. If you can, get it pushed down firmly into the dirt as well as you can. Having something like cinder blocks, the full 8-inch cinder blocks, or even a half cinder block, I find works really well. Sometimes you can just take, say, a half cinder block and rest it right on top, because we want light getting in there. I'll come back to that in a minute. Or a full cinder block, you could just kind of lean it up against the side and weight it down. So the concept is the yellow jackets will come out, they can see the sky, they can see the light, they don't realize, they're not buried. Again, they're very good diggers, so if you just bury the nest with some dirt, they got a couple thousand workers in there that are ready to dig. So just burying a yellow jacket nest often won't work. So they're good diggers, but they can't get through glass. So you put this on there, they see the sky, and they'll fly around. It'll look like a tornado. It's fascinating. And they'll be angry, and they'll fly around, and basically you let them fly and starve and dehydrate. And again, depending on the time of year, if it's earlier in the year, say early summer or late spring, that'll probably take care of them fairly quickly. Within a week or two, you kill off the adults and any of the workers that are hatching out. Towards later in August, September, and later in the year, they're going to be raising drones and queens, and I've seen drones trapped in bowls after a week that have been still quite active. They're probably feeding off of their fallen sisters. It might be something about their biology that allows them to go a little longer without food. But I think within a couple weeks the drones were dead too in that case. But you still have the females, the queens that they're raising, they might be living longer too. So later in the season you might want to leave this in place a little longer than you would earlier in the year, just to make sure if there's any drones or queens in there that they're done in. So Another question is, how long do you want to keep this on here? I think it maybe depends on what time of year. If you find it early in the summer, if you find a nest early in the summer, it's likely it's the one queen in there and a lot of workers. So those workers are going to starve fairly soon. They'll also be cut off from water. So they've got starvation and dehydration working against them. That'll probably kill off most of your workers in 2 or 3 days. Queen's still going to be in there, and there may be some capped brood that needs to hatch out. So probably, I don't know the yellow jacket life cycles as well as bees, but I would think within a few weeks everything would have hatched out and probably died off by then. The queen will probably start beginning to starve. They are scavengers, so there will be some cannibalism going on in the nest, I'm fairly sure. So, you know, if you get a trap like this out earlier in the summer or in the late spring, probably just 2 or 3 weeks should do it. Later in the year, they're going to be raising queens, drones, fattening them up, and like I mentioned earlier, those queens might be ready to go hibernate, so they might be content in there all winter, but we probably don't want to leave this out here all winter. So if it's late season, or if you've got the time and you can just let it go, just try and find a nice day when it's going to be cold, say 50 degrees or lower. Bad weather would be great too, because we're thinking if there still are some queens in there that are living and want to get out, when we come back to take this off and collapse the nest, are they going to be active? The colder it is, it's going to be harder for them to be active, to fly. So if you go out there on a day when it's 45 degrees in November, pull this off, take a shovel and just start digging in there, try and collapse that nest. Maybe bring some extra dirt and just pile it in there, kind of collapse it so that if there is anybody in there, you're basically burying them hopefully under 8 to 12 inches of dirt. It's not likely that any queens are going to be digging out after that. So I'd say later in the summer, if you're doing a trap like this, maybe wait till later in the winter to remove it and make sure it's dead. What I do, I don't have a full suit, so I've got 2 layers of pants on, some heavy rubber boots, tape them up a little bit. Then I've also got, I actually got 3 layers of tops on here, an undershirt, then another.
The bungee. Talk about your bungee cord.
Yeah. Another shirt, and then a thicker one, just because my other 2 are a little thinner. They're more for summer. And then I got a little bungee cord to keep this tighter to my body, to try and keep any from crawling under this, in between this jacket and the thinner shirts below, and my bee gloves. If I was using some sort of spray, like a poison spray, I'd probably put on some latex gloves over these to protect them, or use a separate set of gloves that I wouldn't use with my bees in the future. And then my veil. This is just a helmet with a veil, and I tucked it in real tight, buttoned it up.
Okay.
I've got 2 pairs of sweatpants on, tops and bottoms. I've got work gloves underneath these gloves.
I think that'll work.
All the seams are taped up. Anywhere where a bee can get in. I've got a hat on because I only have 1 layer around the edge, and I'm buttoned up.
A hat up underneath your veil.
Yeah.
I'm pretty straightforward. Just a standard bee suit. I got my bungee cord built in here, taped down on the kitchen gloves, which I hope is enough, and my boots come up to here, and then I've got it cut off there. That's probably the weakest spot. If we were doing something more risky, I would probably want duct tape around the bottom too.
Okay. So I've got my bee gloves under my gauntlet rose gloves, and I've got my foul weather boots and 2 pairs of heavy pants. The one over is much larger. It's a bigger size than I usually wear, so that there's plenty of airspace. I've got a button down underneath my bee jacket, and then I've got 2 thinner pieces of like t-shirt material under that. So actually 4 layers of cloth. And this is for working with yellow jackets. Evidently they have a longer stinger and they can sting you several times. When I'm working with bees, I do not have this much clothing on, and nor do some of these other beekeepers.